This is a tricky topic, one that Taylor wrote an article on late last week. Should athletes be involved in politics? It is being left as simple and as broad as that. Yes, it's only 2 minutes. Taylor, you get to go first this time, and your time starts now.
So this thing was brought back into the mainstream last week, or a couple weeks ago, when Megan Rapinoe was asked at the World Cup whether she and her teammates would go to the White House if they won the Women's World Cup. She said in colorful terms, no, they will not be going. She will not be going. Her teammate, Alex Morgan, said something similar, just they don't agree with the current president's views on things and, so on and so on. And that made the president pretty mad. He tweeted about it and it, blew up into a whole thing again. We've seen the same thing with Colin Kaepernick. We've seen the same thing with LeBron James and Steph Curry and all these other athletes in recent years. And people always say that they should, shut up and dribble and just stick to sports and stuff. But I think it's unfair. They're Americans too. They have the same rights everyone else does in terms of speaking their mind on matters. Whether it makes you uncomfortable or not is pretty irrelevant. They want to use their platforms, to get the word out on what they believe in, which any American can do. I don't see why an athlete should stick to sports when some random dude that's a plumber in Pittsburgh should be free to give his opinion without blowback on that. And, I don't think it should be held to a different standard. I get that it's a controversial topic, but Megan Rapinoe was asked the question. It's not like she did it unsolicited. So we've seen athletes unsolicited do that, but it's their right, just like it's all right to do the same thing if we want to. I get why people would be upset about it, but this is America, and you can speak out on things like that.
All right. Rick, your 2 minutes begins now.
I don't disagree with everything Taylor just said. He has points there. We're all Americans. We all have the right to be able to express, or at least that's what we believe. We have the right to express our opinions. With that said, though, it comes down to how much opinions they are expressing. And I'll give you an example. The NFL was tarnished with how much protesting they had go on. Their ratings went down. Live attendance went down. This all went down because they were protesting America, first of all, and the American flag. I'm just going to say that, put that out there. And many times I can say America. But I don't have a problem with people voicing their opinions or people not liking something or thinking something's wrong or there's an injustice. What I have a problem with is the platform they use to do it. The plumber from Pittsburgh that Taylor was just talking about doesn't have 5 million followers on social media to be able to have any kind of impact that, say, like LeBron James would have. Second of all, and here's another example. Colin Kaepernick just got shoes removed from Nike because they said the flag was racist or it represented a racial period of time. We're in an era in life where an athlete can share an opinion, and because he's an athlete or a celebrity, it has so much more weight than in any of us. There's no way we could have convinced Nike to do anything with a shoe, but Colin Kaepernick can because he's a symbol of protest or a symbol of standing up for what he believes is wrong or whatever you want to say he's a symbol as. I do love the hair, though. I wish I could have that hair. Unfortunately, I wasn't blessed with hair like that. Point is this. When you dominate a sport, we don't pay to see protests. We don't pay to hear your political views. We pay to watch the sport. You're being paid to play. That's it. If we want your political views, we would see you on social media or watch you in a news interview.
Time. So I have to point out one factual thing here. The NFL protests were not of the flag. It was of police brutality. It just happened to correlate with it was done during the anthem. That was the timing of it. Other than that, factually, I think it was fine. So Rick, I have one follow-up question I want to ask you because you kind of responded to Taylor's point about the plumber in Pittsburgh with the opinion. And it was something along the lines of that could not protest to scale. What would you then say about the trending hashtags or whatever of like people breaking Keurigs and burning their Nikes or burning, whatever with the NFL? The trending topics on Twitter that do get started by non-athletes or sometimes celebrities on the other side of the aisle politically. is that not being able to protest the scale?
Not to the same scale, but it is a similar scale. I mean, it's almost like, in my opinion, it's comparing fruit, apples and oranges. It's still a fruit. Like, they don't have the same scale. But the plumber, I wanted to, because you just brought this up, and it kind of makes my point. If a plumber was protesting while he's there fixing your toilets, would anybody be happy with that? No, they'd be like, get out of here, and I'm leaving you a bad review on Yelp. Why is it an athlete can do this during his game, before or after game, when a plumber does? If a plumber, if a cook, if a waiter were to do that on their jobs, they'd be fired, or we would walk out, because that's not what we want with our service. It's the same with our athletes. But to your point, or to your question, Drew, we all have the right to protest something, but athletes have a bigger stage, and with that bigger stage and with that celebrity, in my opinion, comes more responsibility with how you voice the power that you have. Unfortunately, we live in a society where we give celebrities this type of power, this type of voice.
So
I know you want to.
Right. So basically, this is what I think that the better argument was, or the more complete argument was on one side. Plumbers, because it does go back. The counter protest, the people who go online and never watch the NFL again, or burn Nikes, or switch to Adidas, or whatever they want to do, is done to scale, and it's done in response to that because of the platform. The response is bigger than if a random plumber does it. I do think that it's, the other two things too is that when you're talking about the plumber, that you wouldn't want him showing up, you'd leave a bad review on Yelp. And yeah, basically, if you hired an independent contractor, because it's kind of like if you have an Uber driver. If you have an Uber driver who talks your ears off with politics and you didn't want to hear it, you'll leave them a 1-star review and it takes its course. And other people might enjoy it or whatever, and it's that kind of thing.
One point I do want to make is that, so you say you would tell the plumber to go home if he protested or whatever, but certain leagues have installed policies. When U.S. Soccer, for example, has a standing during the anthem policy now. The NBA, I believe, also has the same thing. So it's not like they're doing it without retribution. If they do something like that, they do, stand to get punished in some way with a fine or something like that. So it's not like they're doing it without potential repercussions. Like you say, a plumber would be fired. These people are still potentially getting fined and things like that. So it's not completely apples to apples.
I have to think that on this point, because the amount of things I just marked down that were like, okay, that's a valid point on one side or the other. I think that regardless of the thought on which side may or may not be properly correct, I think that Taylor made more points as to why that might be the better side to this argument.
But you're just bitter about hockey.
I mean, you gave me a point when I went up against Taylor just because I didn't pick the Lakers. So yeah. I think that, I wrote it down. The Americans too, the plumber in Pittsburgh gets platforms, which, they get platforms in political debates on national television. It would be a different standard to say that someone, because they have a larger Twitter base, would have to not give an opinion or give fewer opinions. Athletes get asked the question. They basically are, they're not necessarily giving it out unsolicited, although some do. And if they do, it's their right. The right to speak out as an American, and it is an American right that at least the government can't. People often confuse the First Amendment for being that there is no repercussions. It's that there's no government repercussions. But on the other side, it had the NFL tarnished by the protest. Yes. Taylor made the point that he had chimed in where that they made policy changes.
Yeah, but he didn't do that with a follow-up. That was an illegal point.
It was even
if you had a chance to follow up. I hadn't followed up yet. That was my fault.
Because he didn't ask. That was an illegal point. Qualification.
Rick had the Nike shoes thing where it's kind of that whole discussion on as far as what constitutes crossing the line. And the can't protest the scale, I think, was countered. And because I marked that one down too, because it is as good of a point as there can be. But I think that the smaller protests, when it is done by a number of people independently, does get the same kind of attention from different outlets and online, where one person sending a tweet with a hashtag of boycott NFL does not get the same play as a million people tweeting out the same hashtag. So I think that Taylor had more undisputed points on that. So that's where I'm going on that side. Taylor gets the point. He's on the board. It's now 2-1-1. I hope you enjoyed that debate. You can find a lot more discussions just like that on this week's special All-American edition of the Odds On Favorites podcast, including debating which American city deserves a Major League Baseball team next. Are the New York Yankees or Los Angeles Lakers more America's team? And who is the best competitive hot dog eater of all time, Joey Chestnut or Takeru Kobayashi? Click on the link on your screen now to be taken to that video. And don't forget to subscribe to the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel for even more videos.